Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Joe of Barricade Cyber Solutions, and we have an awesome podcast for you today. Those who have been with Shiva and I for a while, you do know that once a month we do bring a group of our friends together and we talk about the cybersecurity stuff that's on our mind. Just to kind of mess with Jerry a little bit. I think that's how he got what's on your radar type thing, but I digress a little bit. But definitely strap in. We are being broadcast on, I think, 6 different code channels at the moment. So I do know the thing will be or we will have some wide participation from everybody and look forward to it. And with that, we will go ahead and bring everybody in and make introductions, and we'll get started. So thanks for joining everybody. As always, my good friend Shiva, how's you doing?
Morning.
Good, that instant coffee of yours.
I'll be better.
You'll be bitter. Mr. John Wetzel from Recorded Future. Good day, sir.
Yellow.
Mr. John, I will not butcher your last name, from Blackpoint Cyber.
What's up? Live via the RV and Starlink. It works.
Mobile
Good
Command
stuff.
Center.
Mobile
I
command center. I like it.
Dude, that takes you back to 3-letter agencies, I'm sure. Mr. Xavier, how you doing, sir?
Hey.
From also Blackpoint. Good to see you.
It's Javier.
Javier, I always butcher that.
And we're
Oh,
live
Shiva, you
too.
beat me to
You
the
butchered my
punch,
name
man.
live?
That's why he doesn't call you back,
Gosh.
dude.
That may be why.
That's not inaccurate.
Mr. Matt Lee, I'm not sure if you want us to mention your company that you're affiliated with or not, but
Yeah, I'm
whatever.
with PAX8. I'm
PAX8.
an external evangelist, so I get a lot of purchase. I'm okay.
So those who don't know, PAX8 is a wholesale of products that for the SaaS platforms that y'all resell for IT and MSPs.
Yep.
And our good buddy, also Mr. Vince Crisler with Dark Cube.
Hello. It's
How's
great to see
everybody going?
everybody.
So what is going on? It's been 2, maybe 3 months since we've held one of these things. It feels way overdue. So what's everybody up to these days?
Who
Not
wants
it.
to go first?
I'm dipping out early, so I'll be the first to go. I got a live stream after this here back to back. But, for me, it's just been a lot of travel, a lot of education. There's been some great speaking points recently around, just basically some of the motions in driving our economic reasons to start securing oneself, right? And so it's been a lot of good cannon fodder for that, right? Both between, SEC and some of their proposed regulations, as well as CERT and a lot of those things. So anyways, just been busy teaching, doing my thing.
Man, you probably
A lot
got
of-
more
Nice.
flight hours than I do right now.
45 flights now this year. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, our
100,
feathers growing
101 since May 20th, actually. So,
Are feathers starting to grow out your backside yet?
man, my arms are sure tired. But I'm dad joke of the day. But
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat, man. Lots of travel. We've been
Have
hitting
you?
a lot of these managed service provider shows. It's just great to see everybody out again.
yeah.
I think what's cool about this channel is it's so much of this happens face to face. Meeting somebody over a drink, having a discussion,
Yep.
proving that you're not just some BS marketer.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of fun.
It's always an
Well,
important.
and a lot of like real conversations happen, right? Like that's where you get to the meat of it with most of those people is in that kind of, I hate saying it, drinking environment because, Ian Richardson doesn't drink, but he stays in that environment. But yeah, that's awesome, Vince.
I think for
Nice.
us, we've been traveling. We've been doing a little bit of charity work. We've been doing some support for Ukraine, which, I think we can feel good about. But more on the cyber side, we're finally sharing intel reports from stuff we've done for many years. We never shared any details on tradecraft or techniques, and been doing some podcasts. And so, once Microsoft released that report on Hafnium, which we had stopped them, many months prior and had some more info, we started releasing stuff there. And then, specifically the Black Cat ransomware group, we noticed they were liking to use free trials of like IT tools, and RMM
Yep.
software deployment stuff
Which
to
one?
kind of, there's several.
He wants to call out.
Yeah.
Shiva, I
all
love
of
you.
all of them. I'm just gonna-
To be honest, like,
Yeah.
it was, I would say some of the obscure ones, like total software deployment, that was actually probably the catalyst. Screen Connect was involved, but to be honest, I don't really fault them on this one at all. In fact, they snuffed it immediately when we told them. And what was the other one? Total Network Scanner. So,
and Atera.
yeah.
How
So
about that company
Oh,
that
the
starts with a
go-to.
K and ends with an A.
But that was kind of interesting. And also their ransomware for that group is written in Rust. It
Yes.
is
Oh wow.
fast.
Yeah, that's very fast. I was
Fast.
surprised,
They've
yeah.
kind of changed. I don't want to mess up because I don't think John went yet. We'll talk about it in a bit, but we had some interesting characteristics that we saw from it's a concept. Did you want to go really spooky and try and hide your tracks, or do you want to not care and operate loud but fast? Both win. And sometimes going spooky catches you easier, and going loud and fast, you can't stop it. So it's the same net result for the bad guy. All right,
I prefer loud and fast, just to go on the record before John goes. Like, it's just
I thought we were PG here.
We haven't crossed too far yet. So.
Man, you're on a roll, man.
man, that
You're
was
on a
not
roll.
where my head went. But thanks, guys. I appreciate y'all keeping it
That's
high
where mine
bar.
went.
Yeah, fair. Touche.
We can't go all full piss and vinegar, Shiva. We do have one in the works for that, though. But anyway, what's up, John? Man, I haven't, dude. It's been 6 months? You've been living in isolation? Not really, but you've been kind of off the radar.
It's been a while. I'm just getting back online from having a third kid. Well, I didn't have it. It just kind of blended in my household. So
Congratulations. I didn't know if you want us to publicly put that out there, but I did hear you had another kid, so congratulations on that.
Did you mind sharing
Congrats.
date of birth, social security number, address, weight and height? I'm just kidding.
Right after he signs up for LifeLock.
No, yeah, it was. It's been a fun experience, but nobody tells you when you have the third kid, it's now chasing them down. You're holding them while you're trying to use one arm to wrangle two kids, and that's really what gets you running around for that. So then trying to keep up on anything else is okay, what's going on in the news? Ransomware. Okay, again, I guess that's still a thing. I'll deal with that when I get back.
I did find when we had our third kid, we were much less worried about breaking them, right? And so you're just whatever, there's a lot less anxiety, and you're just hanging them around by their feet and doing whatever you need to do.
That's funny.
Not wrong.
This is true. I have 3. This is the thing.
It is. So I guess let's dive in. I mean, me and Shiva were talking about it a little bit earlier, and I'm not sure if we really want to save this one for this one or a different one, but it's go for it. All right, send it. Cleared hot.
Great podcast, by the way.
Great. Has anybody looked at this train wreck Verizon report that was put out this week? The conferencing data breaches from 2021.
I have not.
Don't waste your time.
I have not read it.
Ransomware's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
People are
is that kind of the
stupid.
meat of it? Yeah, fair.
People are stupid, and insider threats are worse. There you go. I just saved you 103 pages of reading.
To be candid, I read the Verizon breach report many years ago, and then a couple times after, and it was the same shit every year. So I stopped reading.
No, but they changed the year.
Date.
Yeah, I know. I just it's one of these things you can read someone else's report, but if you do this for a living, I'd like to read my own, intel and understand it. So yeah.
I mean, I do like to see some of the other reports out there. I mean, granted, we're not as deep as you are, John, but definitely seeing what other people are seeing out there, at least from my perspective, is a good thing. But
I like the real specific ones that are really into tradecraft.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, those are the ones we read, if that makes sense. Not the high level.
I like to read
much more
I
tactical.
like to read a lot of and a lot of DFIR reports too that people put on. Those are always interesting because then they go a little bit more into how it led up to the malware rather than malware on.
Yeah, that DBIR I found for years, there's so much work that goes into it, so many people that are involved, but they distill it down to such a high level that the real value is in it is to paste in your slides, for your presentations. Here's a chart that shows why this is important. But John, to your point on writing reports, I think, coming from a technical background, I've always been nervous about putting stuff out there because I'm people are going to really vet and care about it.
Right.
And I think 2 or 3 years ago, I put together a report on consumer IoT devices. Right. And I had a summary volume that was like 12 or 15 pages, and I had a technical volume that was like 110 pages. And I don't think anybody read the freaking technical volume. And so the next year, like we did it again 2 years later, and they were like, we're keeping this under 10 because nobody's going to read it, which is like, it kills me. It's like you try, there's all this information you can publish, and people are just like, I want to see the cliff notes.
Yeah, there's a line to walk to on, education versus arming, if that makes sense. I just, not to blow smoke up John's ass, but Record Future, their intel reports are fantastic. I freaking love them, and they do a really good job at them. Like, I mean that. Like, we've read them, and it's legit. So obviously, we came from my previous life intelligence community. Like, the reporting discipline is a real thing, even though the community messes up sometimes. And if you're gonna do it, it better not be a thinly veiled marketing slick. It better be honest and real and vetted. And I think that builds some, credibility.
Wasn't there one of those that came out a couple of weeks ago?
That's what I was trying to do, is put my own fingers in my ears on that one.
Are we talking about the Threat Locker RMM MSP tool?
And the backlash on that was fast and furious.
But well deserved. Well deserved.
Fast.
I like the correcting nature of it, right? Like, I don't hate their product. I think it's a decent product. I think it's a cool thing to use to solve a challenge. But boy, the marketing side, holy hell, guys! Like, it just breaks my heart. But I digress.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. But
so, what are you guys? I guess, John, since you're just getting back, Wetzel, just getting back into the swing of things. Let's put you on the spot. What are you seeing after a few months off?
I'll be honest. I'm still getting caught up on technical reports. I've been looking at some legal and compliance stuff coming down the pipeline, and that's kind of been that took me on a little tangent the other day. I have a friend who's a lawyer, and she was talking about. Have you guys been following Aerojet at all? Aerojet Rocketdyne Systems. All right, so they got cleared for trial, went to trial, and then 24 hours later, they settled out of court for like $9 million. And the crux of the case is a cybersecurity one, which is this. Their former senior director of InfoSec sued them because he said that they weren't in compliance with cybersecurity regulations. Both basically said that they were out of compliance for kind of best practices for DFARS, and that he also sued him for wrongful termination.
Okay.
Apparently,
there's the other half of it.
But here's what it is: the suit, most of the findings of the suit was actually under False Claims Act. So DOJ came down last year and said that they were going to start taking a lot more.
I saw that from Federal Trade Commission was pushing it. Yep.
Yeah. So basically, DOJ supported this suit. And what the False Claims Act allows you to do is that if somebody was an employer or somebody says, hey, you were out of compliance with federal regulations, you can claim up to 3 times the amount of their government, like their government contracts, plus like $50,000 per incident. And then on top of it, if you win, and like DOJ backs it, if you win under a False Claims Act suit, you get 15 to 30% of that back to you. So they won they settled out of court, and it was like a $9 million fine. And this was like end of April. This whole thing came through. So Aerojet Rocketdyne Systems, I think, is but it's like an interesting precedent, because now you have, like, it brings up this new thing, because now Department of Justice is now saying, hey, if you
we'll be your sword.
We'll be your sword. If your company is in compliance, we'll come in and we'll help you sue them. And it's severe.
I just got goosebumps, John.
Is there any correlation with that case and the Uber case, with their CIO being held liable for cybersecurity failures?
Well, I think that one was like so DOJ just came out I think last year and said they kind of reversed
December.
Previously they said no, we're not going to do too much, and then because of the Biden the executive order, they reversed positions on it completely, and this is the first test case for it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested.
I remember seeing that. And so the concept was, and I didn't know this other component, John, but the concept in that FTC release was, hey, we're going to start suing you not because you're necessarily not doing cyber stuff, but essentially if you misrepresent what you are doing, right? And that's essentially what the statement was. And this is the first action of that. But I didn't know the other component, which makes this 1,000 times stronger. Like, how many times is DOJ going to be able to build a case against something from the outside in without any data or information? Now that you made this hey, you know what? Our security director, not this security director, he's very happy, but our security director is not happy. He's tired of fighting the board. The board's not listening. The SEC aspect hasn't kicked in. And now guess what? I've got the biggest sword in the world that nobody ever wins against, or if they do, it costs a lot. Right. And I mean, that if I was in a boardroom, and I might actually talk to a boardroom about this, but if I was in a boardroom, this is an amazing sword.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Holy
I would
hell.
stop inviting the IT guys.
Would
Yeah,
Threat
you-
Locker,
like-
I did literally
There you
monetize
go.
snitching.
Matt, would
great.
Threat Locker stop that lawsuit, by the way?
Oh Jesus!
I'm not going to go on record saying anything like that, Shiva. You know I get in troubles.
Not just trouble, but troubles.
It's multiple troubles. It's Ken Patterson troubles right this moment. So I'll leave it alone at that. That's brilliant, John. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to use that in a speech in like the next 2 days. So I'll do a little vetting. But that's fantastic.
How about you, John?
I don't remember the original question, Shiva. I just was fascinated by this new concept.
All right, we're
So,
gonna skip you and
man.
put you at the back of the
As
class.
as soon as someone said compliance, man, it was like a foghorn in my ear.
We can ask Javier to talk about that thing you wanted him to talk about, whatever that was.
Yeah, you started down this path of asking Javier to talk more about about the Rust.
The
based,
ransomware.
ransomware.
Yeah, Rust
Yeah,
based.
Man, I can bring it back, boys. I got this.
Thanks.
I'm here for something.
yeah, X, go for it. I mean, I thought.
Yeah,
I
man, I
thought-
can talk about that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of interesting, and like you said, John, it brings up this weird kind of middle ground of, you got your automated detections, your AVs, your whatnot. Like, they're looking for all those cool nerdy tactics in memory, process injection, all this, but you get samples like the Black Hat ransomware, which has no obfuscation, no nothing,
Right.
written in Rust. There, you can literally parse it out quite well and see what it's doing, with basic decompilers. And
Thanks, John.
it was very, very, it's very effective that way because it's so simple. It makes it harder for the automated solutions to be like, this is bad, because they don't want to. It's similar, just like a regular application. There's no difference between that and something I write and compile real quick and go, or in Rust.
Well, and X, the other part is even a lot of the kind of canary tactics. It's so freaking fast. By the time you trip that,
Yeah.
it's still smashed like 50-60% of the box.
Yeah. It has very efficient algorithms inside of it. So it's an interesting ransomware group because they're not the most loud, but they do have a level of sophistication that's a little bit different than some of just like the normals, like the lock bits and all those. They operate more of a quick model, while the Black Hat ransomware, they put a little bit of effort and kind of some new tactics into what they're doing, so they must have. It's probably, honestly, a lot of these are just spin-offs of other group operators. So I can, why am I giving someone else some of this cake? I won't take it all.
So X, what I've seen of this Rust ransomware payload, this thing is the reason that it's so fast. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're the master at this malware analyst than I am, but it's only taking the first 32 bits of it and changing it for the encryption and leaving the rest of the file alone and just cycling through. Is that correct, or is it the last? Or can you
I believe it was the first. I think it limits to 4 megabytes.
Okay.
Which will hose most documents, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other ransomware. I knew there's another ransomware sample out there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it had an algorithm where it would skip, like it would do like 32 bits, and then it would skip like 16 bits and 32, and so it didn't make the entropy too wild of the file. So that kind of fooled a lot of AV solutions out there too, because it's like, the file wasn't as changed as it could be. So yeah, there's some samples out there that have those type of capabilities, but yeah, I think they learned from the past when it'll start choking on like an ISO file some tech has on a shared drive. And then it's like, it takes a long time to encrypt a 4 gigabyte file. So
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about it, when you use a free tool as your backdoor or trial or whatever, that's not bad. It's not going to flag bad in anything. Then you deploy something like this. It's really freaking effective.
Yeah.
It's hurry
mean,
up offense, right? Like at
yeah,
some point, it's
it is. It's no
And it's
huddle.
fast,
It's
too.
a no huddle
Yeah.
offense of freaking ransomware.
Right.
Did,
Yeah.
And then to
you
make
guys-
matters better, like John, like a lot of the MSPs when they're fighting their security tools, and even a lot of security tool practitioners, unfortunately, recommend those exclusions for those RMMs, right? And so
Yeah.
that's been a
That's another part.
long-standing two-sided battleground where some of the solutions, purported by some of the players, with like signing our code and only having this be able to be run and not really excluding the direct, but none of them are there, and so you already have like this. If I was a threat actor, I'm going to go buy 2 or 3 main tools and see what has no restrictions upon it when I want to do something, inject a process into it, or right, like get into somewhere where you're like, done. I know they're not protected against this. Even enumeration, right? X, but this is so hard to catch, I would imagine.
It's very yeah. When it gets down to this type of stuff, it is very hard to catch because you're talking about something being executed by like a known, good, signed, verified piece of software. So
I mean, I used to use
kinda throws out
PowerShell in the back end of Screen Connect to do hundreds of things, right? Like
yeah,
so
and
it's common
and totally
practice.
it's used for good 99% of the time.
Yep,
But yeah,
it's
there's
brilliant.
Well, and certain
it's
tools
very interesting.
that you install almost come with a framework to execute, by accident, and then you
Yeah.
can really live off the land even more. I mean, I
There's
forget what
a-
example we talked about recently.
There's one recently assigned executable from Avast called AV dump, and it's used to dump
Yes.
processes.
Oh, Jesus.
So you can go ahead and dump that LSAS process where all those secret credentials are for it, and it's assigned by Avast. Nice process, AV ones. Yeah, that's the newest one that I was reading about. But
That's
I've seen
brilliant.
also other. I've seen PExec, PSExec signed by someone's company certs before. It's like, whoa, perfect. Let me grab that real quick.
Wasn't there a big file sharing platform that had one of those tools bundled with it? Like, what was it? Well, I don't want to out them, but
Yeah.
people are gonna use it. But
Fair.
yeah, but
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember on top of my head. I know there was a big, RMM company that also bundles in something that could be used for. A lot of them bundle in like putty. It's like even that. Like
Yep.
I've
And
got-
not even
I've
a
got-
common version. There was 0.6
No.
still on one of them. I was so
I was just about
mad.
to say it's like
Like, how is this
0.06 version of
possible?
it.
Like I was like, what? I know we're talking about the same vendor. It blows my
Probably.
mind. It blows
And I'm just like, wow. And I've seen the threat actors be like, oh, putty's here, thank you. Let me make a reverse tunnel back to my hacker server.
Thank you for
and
reverse SSH.
tunnel some RDP.
You rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, thank you for that.
No, because they definitely are blocking 22. This isn't up. We're fine. X. This isn't
Yeah, they're
possible.
blocking
They're
22.
I thought you were supposed to allow
You
all
can change
NN
SSH ports.
Yeah, just any and just go about to that.
yeah.
Yeah, man. No one runs SSH over 443. That's dope.
Yes, not even possible.
X, I got a
Yeah.
question for you
Awesome.
on the Black Cat thing you brought up.
Yeah.
Last week, CISA put out, CISA, however you pronounce it, weak security controls and practices routinely exploited for initial access. Are you familiar with that one? List of about 10 things that they're telling you that most people don't harden.
To be fair, they also just added Heartbleed to the known exploited list,
Well,
right?
we
Like
were-
2004 or something.
We were
whatever.
talking about sometimes these threat parts get delayed a little bit when they come out of.
Well, no, the reason I asked
A
this is
little?
because you guys are saying that Black Hat is fast and loud. Is it because they
Yeah.
realize they don't need to be stealthy? There's so much misconfiguration and poor security out there that bang the doors, smash the doors down, take what you can get.
There's other like poor security has driven a lot of ransomware groups or e-crime groups, open RDPs, and there's a lot that could be stopped by just best security practices. But the Black Hat tactics, I mean, unless you really got someone auditing every piece of software being installed, it's really hard to differentiate between just some tech finding total software inventory and installing it because he's curious, or it's a ransomware group installing it because they want to when it gets to their tactics, it's a little different.
X, to Shiva's point, though, I mean, I know we did some testing of VDRs like a year ago, and you found like to evade them, simple tactics worked better than process hollowing and all fun stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that also plays into their method approach. I mean, I think EDRs coming along have actually made it harder for the bad guys to do the more hacky stuff, and they've switched to a lot more live off the land stuff IT, which is my favorite way because it works all the time.
Well, but you also have the fact that a lot of ransomware groups, when they get that initial access, they'll kill the EDR on that system, and then nobody alerts on that. So that's one of the things I've never understood is why more orgs don't alert when, hey, something just, a third party process just killed our EDR or endpoint. So even if you have the best EDR protection out there, and if you have it properly configured, and that's a big if, you have the problem of, well, am I alerting when it's been killed?
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, I've always been a big proponent on, it comes with security and death too. Like, also it comes down to like, do you want your AV company monitoring itself? Really, you should probably there'd be an alternative outside of it. A lot of them have like RMM tools already on there. So that's that's monitoring your other stuff. You kind of separate those gaps because, initially it is kind of hard. I know a bajillion ways to get around the AV is that it would be such a massive lift to even figure out why. That they're blind to something. Yeah. That
we watched Dark Side do exactly what you guys are talking about, but they threw a jump up code exploit to turn off an EDR.
Yeah.
Because tamper protection, like when you actually look at a lot of them, a few of them do it really well, but a lot of them have some sort of fatal flaw in their tamper protection. And it's
how much of that, John, how much of that is affected by doing good hygiene, like not having local admin or restricting applications that can run to certain applications? Like, you know what I mean? Like those are the things where my mind goes back to about 60-70% of the methodologies to evade an EDR probably go away, or am I just living in a pipe dream here, X?
That is a good stopper for it all. Again, there's always the next, unknown jump up code. Sure. There's the user, you come in, you jump up to escalate your privileges. There's a lot of ways to do this. Even knowing that like it even doesn't even come down to the operating system. Sometimes it even comes down to sometimes your vendors may have a gap in some security they have on the software on there, and it's trivial for someone to use that to jump up code locally. So I mean, it does help though.
File, like Defender's file attack that you could use, if I remember.
The side loading, that's what I'm actually getting towards. Yeah, side loading is a huge hard one to solve. Yes,
but Matt, I think you're right, man. If you take like the ability to be a local admin that may have the same account on other computers to interrogate and learn about your environment, it makes it so much harder and slower for the bad guy. And then the level of sophistication of the operator has to go way, way, way up.
Yeah, sure. And that's when they start triggering the AVs a little bit, because they have to start getting a little trickier, a little obtuse, and then they start coming out more. But yeah, having shared local admins across machines, it might as well just have domain access. Admin access. It's the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, having shared local access.
They put /users in the local admins, or if you will. It's not great.
Yeah, local. Yeah, might as well just add them to the domain admins. Solves a lot of tickets, right?
Yeah, it's great. Convenience first.
Matt, we stopped the nation state again the other 2 weeks ago.
The one you told me about.
I sent you a snippet of that, but that one again, they were running a DMZ, which I think they need to be dead and shot in the head. That's because everyone screws up your rules, right? Between outside and inside. It's so easy to mess them up. And these guys, they had that set up, so that was a knock against them. And then it was Cold Fusion exploit ultimate.
I know. That was so brilliant. Why is Cold Fusion doing net users group lookups?
Right.
Like, this doesn't make
sense. And what did they do? These guys were so nervous about getting caught. They got caught anyway, but they're so
they did like one transaction a day or something. Like
they'll do one like command a day.
Yeah, it's literally very slow.
Yeah.
But
we had a case about 2 weeks ago where a malware was stealing credit card transactions in the network, putting it to a text file. And this is, X, you probably are familiar with this. I know John and Allan definitely will be, but they would take and write it to it, exfiltrate that text file, and then timestamp that text file. They would delete it and then recreate that file real quick. So your original time and date was still there, but you open it and it's blank. It's a whole thing inside of Windows of time stomping. So, we kept seeing malware getting and traction going to this text file. Like, what the hell is going on here? It's like, there's nothing in here, but everything is writing to it. So we actually had to actually do a Wireshark to actually find all that stuff. And then we actually seen it in the alternative data streams.
I was just there's alternative data streams. Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, it took me a little bit. It's like, crap, why didn't I think of that? And it actually had in the alternative data stream where it was uploading that file to a mega share. I'm like, why did you even put that in there? But I was glad that they did, because then it gave me that clue.
Right.
But yeah,
and that's kind of how they get out of that, air gapped part. They'll SMB over the data from, the scrape it out of memory, SMB it over, and then find something else to hook it in and get it out.
yeah, it's really. So it's not all. I say that to say it's not always cut and dry, right? So
and you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So I do see a lot of. We had a couple cases over the past couple of weeks where we all seen Sonic Wall being, the forefront of many issues with some of their versions, and just seems like a lot of people are not patching. So that's kind of Vince's world right there for the most part. Especially with firewall, syslog monitoring and everything. So definitely be patching your damn firewalls, people.
Yeah. We've done a little. We've done a little research lately on this. Have you guys heard of the BPF door stuff?
No.
Like it's kind of like this obscure thing. They've attributed it to a Chinese group, to Red Mention, but it's a Linux-based malware that uses the Berkeley packet filters to watch for commands in random packets. So you embed a command in some random packet, and as it comes through, it picks it up and executes the command. It's really sneaky stuff.
It's almost like steganography.
Yeah, and the way they
packet steganography.
Yeah, and the way they load it, basically, they get it loaded into memory. They change the timestamps on everything. They rename it. They delete it. So it's the way they hook into to Linux is pretty crazy too. So it's one of the most interesting things I've looked at in a while.
That's pretty clever. Cool. Vince, you on the network side, do you see a lot of hackers being lazy with their user agent strings?
Threat actors, John. Some people identify as hackers.
Oh, okay. Threat actors. Sorry.
Man, I'm just being a Chris Roberts gets all riled up about that one personally. So
I'm too old to use the old terms.
No, we're not focusing in on that level, John. We're basically like, what we see is most of these hackers are lazy about the infrastructure they're using. Like they don't have to conceal that infrastructure in any way, shape, or form, and they're highly successful. And so our whole approach is, we're collecting from as many sources as we can to say, okay, we know what infrastructure the bad guys are using, and if it touches your network, we're just going to block it.
Is it fairly ephemeral, or does it stay, Vince?
Yeah, what's the attrition rate?
Yeah.
Oh, we see the same things over and over and over again. I mean, it's just there's unique stuff that pops up, and we're tapped into. One of my favorite sources is the gray noise data. Right, we're tapped into their API. And so as gray noise identifies people scanning for stuff and doing malicious stuff, we just block it. Cool. And so it's, shut the gates before they even get in. And then, if they do get in, you can refer to somebody else, like, Blackpoint or somebody else to help. I don't know if I saw a comment about the name of the hack. If you guys are talking about the other one, but I was talking about BPF door.
BPF? Bravo. Yeah. Papa.
Oh. You just
Bravo Papa Foxtrot.
You just enabled them. I'm joking around.
We definitely see on the password spraying attacks and things like that. Them being lazy with user agent strings, and it's like a Linux string or something, and that can actually
Python.
It's basic, but it can be a pretty simple, quick rule to apply. To cloud service they support or other login things to just block them.
On the password spraying stuff, like we'll see exposed servers that I think people may not realize were exposed, and they're getting hit 20, 30,000 times. And like, why is this thing even exposed? You should probably do like a firewall rule to limit that.
And most times they're like, we forgot about that. And I'm like,
exactly. And so we we saved a lot of networks just by displaying like, look, this thing's getting hammered. And people know about it.
And they've been paying for pen tests, and they've only not listed that external IP because they didn't know it was exposed. It's just not in scope because it doesn't exist. It's not out.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's funny.
I've never understood. I've never understood the desire of organizations to limit the scope of a pen test like that.
I agree with you on that one. Yeah.
I'm like, let me find what I'm going to find. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Find what you're going to find, and then let me, I'll take action on that on the back end. But don't tell me ahead of time. Oh, ignore this class C because that is,
It depends on if you're doing the pen test to justify your job or to actually find the bad stuff.
Exactly.
Right. If it's a compliance thing, or if it's I want to actually stop people from getting in the network. Right. That is an excellent point.
A compliance thing.
Don't scan this network because it's a 2003 server and it really gets choked up when you're scanning it. Can we exclude that one?
It's operationally bad for us, right? Yeah.
I've actually
in there.
I've actually walked away from penetration jobs like that. Like my literally, those who have actually engaged with me know that I literally ask one question: what networks do you want to make sure we scan that I may not be able to find on a public resource?
Sure.
And that's literally the only question. And I give them my cell phone number in case things go bump in the middle of the night and I break something. We're not going to just not scan your entire C-class. I don't care.
I got something on my radar, Eric, and this is an Eric Taylor radar point, but also kind of me tangentially. Did you see the change in DOJ about prosecution of good faith hackers and threat actors or people in our situation? Like, you've done that with me in my company before, right? And
I've done that with many people.
Humored about it, but now you almost have some legal protection potentially. I mean, I didn't dig deep into it. John, have you dug into that much on that DOJ announcement 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it's kind of in the same envelope as some of the other DOJ changes there. It's interesting to see DOJ start getting more and more involved with this, because on one hand they have the compliance thing where they're saying, hey, we're going to get tougher on companies that are falling behind, but on the other hand they're actually saying, listen, if you're trying to take the positive steps, if you're trying to contribute to be part of the solution, we're going to actually be supportive of that, which is weird to me because it's also from DOJ and FTC who's leading it, as opposed to it coming out of CISA or anybody else kind of saying like we're going to do it. It's kind of from the legal arm of saying we're going to try and be good lawyers now.
But FBI's had that precedence for a minute, right? Like if you remember back since I think in the Obama administration, not to put it on politics, but just the understanding that I think the FBI had a directive of don't re-victimize the victim, even if it turns out they weren't dealing in their own best interest, right? Like so after they have a ransomware, they had a policy of not re-victimizing that victim, if that makes sense, by prosecuting them for things found.
You mean like if you get mugged in the city or whatever, like not arresting the guy that got mugged?
Well, the guy that got mugged and has a bag of cocaine in his pocket. So it's more the guy that got mugged and had a bag of his cocaine in his pocket that wasn't taken. They might not arrest him for the cocaine. That's a
better analogy. Well, so where is the line on that on this new DOJ? Like, so
right?
I got to
go pen test a cloud service, throw an exploit, and be like, no, I was just doing it for like security purposes.
So yeah, this is where really the rub comes in, right? And this is what my 2 cents gathering of this is. There are a lot of companies out there, and I'm sure even everybody on this call will get, hey, I found a vulnerability in your website. Let's have a call and you can pay me some money and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, we all get that kind of crap. And there's a bunch of those scanners that are out there that are doing that, blah, blah, blah. This is where a lot of my stuff comes in. It's like I pick on Matt when he's in a conference room saying, Matt should really hire us about a podcast.
Yeah, anyway. He took a subdomain takeover, Jack. It's our fault. But, yeah.
I really had some fun.
Put my picture up and link to a YouTube channel of mine. Like
that he was on with
have
me
a
and
good sense
Shiva.
of humor for that one. So
I
guess.
But anyway, yeah, it was.
It was funny though because it was tongue in cheek saying, "Hey, here's Matt talking about why you harden your infrastructure and hire pen testers on a subdomain of ours." Right?
But that's very different when the guy doing it knows the object.
Exactly.
Like, you guys have
true story.
A relationship.
Yeah, we're
right?
friends, right? Like so that makes it.
If you didn't know who he was,
I get you.
your entire outlook would have been completely different.
Oh, yeah.
True story.
Well,
yeah,
I think
and that's where it comes in. It's like if a company has an actual vulnerability disclosure program, a bug bounty program, things of that nature, that's where I think this DOJ applies it to at least a federal level. I can't go and just start attacking Blackpoint Cyber for some weird reason. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
That sounded a little close to home.
It did.
Matt, I hate to tell you, you're not the only one.
That's fine.
I love John. He's been very nice to me. But anyway, you can't just go and randomly start screwing with people's networks and not expect repercussions.
So,
like if you want to go test, I imagine where this comes in is if you want to start testing federal infrastructure and do an honorable disclosure and say, hey, I mean good. I'm coming to you in good faith.
Here's where it came in for me. And Shiva, you go ahead. You look like you were poised to say something.
I have a thought on that. What if that is to protect people who do it through a vulnerability disclosure program who are threatened by the company saying, if you disclose this, we're going to sue you?
That might be where this comes into play.
I think that's more where it's going.
Yeah.
To just
Maybe.
not let the big guy scare the little guy.
Here was where my argument comes in. So the Netherlands has this as an already like default methodology, right? Like you could literally hack into a Twitter account of a United States sitting president and you will be prosecuted by them just to have it on record that you were found innocent, right? So like this is actually coming from the guys over at whatever it was, Divid, yeah. But the point is, like, here's where I think this comes into play. I did a research project. I looked at 50 cities and I pulled up how many Unify controllers I could find in Shodan that were still there. And I had to go to it because it was Ajax. It would tell me the version, right? And I strung together Log4j and PwnKit that were both vulnerable in that version and was able to gain root and patch the end Unify controller. Like that's where I think this legal protection kind of was. It was great.
So wait, Matt is now the FBI.
Yeah, I did proxy log on shell, right? Yeah, I did proxy shell protections. But I was saying I could have done that, right? I could have run one Python script to execute almost all of that by just pulling Shodan API and executing across, checking to see if the version's vulnerable and moving forward.
See, Matt, if you use Dark Cubed, they would stop that.
I was just about to say
from Shodan, not Dark Cube. Yeah,
I agree with that statement.
I got that email. Just in case you're wondering.
This is a point of contention. We got some interesting responses back. Like people are like, "How could you block Shodan?" I'm like, "Look, like
easily,
you're gonna have stuff that's vulnerable."
It's brilliant. And
yeah, I mean that's an excellent idea because you don't want your potential weaknesses being broadcast on a public open resource like that, right?
Makes it easy for me. Just little queries. And,
I don't know where like the line is. In my opinion, the line is, I think, as soon as you execute code, you go
but that seems to be what the legal protection is but if you did I feel that, like I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe I haven't read it, so I have no idea. I'm just saying, just blaming me. I feel like once you execute code and the other side doesn't know you're doing it, I think you've kind of crossed this magic threshold. I think
even if it's just like, apt update, is that acceptable?
I don't know. I think it's once you execute code and someone didn't ask you to do that, you just walked in my house. I didn't ask you to come in.
Thanks for coming in and vacuuming for me, you jerk.
I was about to say, I feel like someone coming and cleaning your house and then leaving. Be like, your door's unlocked, so I cleaned your house.
I just mowed your lawn.
Mowed your lawn.
But now pay up, sucker.
Yeah, no doubt.
The window.
Now that's ransomware.
And that might be the other side of it. I don't know that I could ask for money for that and have legal protection, right? I think that might be it really is meant to deal with the good faith threat act or hackers in this case. But yeah,
so. I think I want to protect folks. They're like, I think we found a vulnerability, and the company's like, "F you, I'm gonna crush you."
Yeah,
I've had that.
That's a whole. That's a whole different.
ConnectWise and Bishop Fox.
That
this
was
is not
well
Matt
publicly.
It for whoever's listening.
No, that's publicly out there. I said it to their sales team. Actually, I said it to their sales team at their sales kickoff. I punched them over that. It was right as that was kind of all happening back in February of 2020 or so, and I was like on the stage and I was like, "They're not going to throw me out at this point. They've already paid for the flight, so let's."
It's already paid for. Good. What damage can that cost now?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like me with TimesDesk. I've talked about this a little bit, but that PSA integration, they first say, "Hey, thanks for, disclosing this freaking thing." And to this day, they still have an iDoor available, but they told me to go kick rocks.
That was your fault because their logs couldn't handle it.
Yeah, true. You do a little bit of fuzzing and their logs can't handle it. They're like, "Oh, we can't really tell you." I'm like, whatever, guys, whatever. So
you see Chris Weaver's comment? That was kind of cool. How do you feel about someone walking by and saying, "Hey, your window's open. You might want to close it"? Hell yeah, totally good. If you walk in the window and tell me on the inside, you get a hole. But
you'd be like, "Hey,
but wait, what if they walk by, they tell you, and then they ask you for money?"
Well, I think the other side of this too, like
I found a vulnerability in your premise.
You gotta remember, like the federal government is not one entity. And like, so you have a lot of different moving parts there. Like, I know we talked about the FBI being like, "Oh, hey, they used to try to enforce this anyhow." But like for a long time, people, even defense contractors, didn't want to let the FBI in the door because as soon as you did, you were getting visits from HSI, Secret Service, everybody else on it. Somebody's going to ask, "Can I put a box on your network?" So, and it was like just this thing that's like, all right, you may not legally enforce me, but it's hard for me to keep having these agents come through and looking through all my company's documentation. And then somebody's going to want to say, hey, what's your export compliance? What's this? What's that? And it's like, I'd rather not have that. The other thing is with DOJ putting out the memo, I think the other side of it is them trying to send a signal to the rest of the federal government saying that, listen, if you're going to have people who are voluntarily like kind of giving us stuff, let's do that. Even if they're asking money, that's a business problem. Let's let them deal with it. But what we don't want to have is this stuff coming to light and then us having to like, go back and forth like legal compliance. Let's remove one part of that equation from it and try to set a precedent of how people should be going forward with this. It makes a lot of sense to us, but on the other side of that equation, on the government legal side, like you guys are worried about marketing people, I worry about the lawyers. And that's really where like good thought goes to die of like, hey, who should we go in there? What should we do? Should we prosecute? Should we not prosecute? Comes into play. And I think that's probably why they decided to put out a memo. The other piece of that, in addition to
that's fascinating, John. You know what's wild is like I'm thinking back on pretty much every nation state like save we've done. I can't think of one of the companies that told the government or wanted to, or the FBI, because they didn't want a train of people coming in.
Right.
They all like rug, they.
I mean, that's like volunteering for a colonoscopy in your business.
Yeah. I mean,
I will put out a plug for.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I will put out a plug for the guys in DICE DC under DC3, like they run the DIB CS program. We're actually doing a program with them where they're deploying Dartkube for free for defense contractors. But that is an organization that takes that relationship with the private sector to the extreme. They protect the folks that are involved. If you report, they don't creep. They sometimes get in hot water with other organizations because of that, but they're a really solid organization, the government, that I've been really really impressed by.
I think it's important to share when you have it. Keep some bounds around it. Make sure your GC is involved, but I think it's really important to share that tradecraft that you're seeing just to get it up, to give them situational awareness. I think one of the biggest challenges is really hard for the government to be terribly effective in actual cybersecurity other than education. Because the way our intelligence services are set up, like NSA can only focus outbound, FBI only inbound. So there's no one that has a great view that they can bring it all together, that it's not fully wrapped in crazy legal processes. And so, I mean, how many times have we had the FBI come to one of our customers and said, hey, someone was attacking you 6 months ago? And I'm like, yeah, I know. We stopped it like 30 seconds in. Thanks. A little late to the party, guys.
Right. Yeah. That is.
But I can foresee how this happened because there was something overseas that tripped it. It made down requests for extra data, and finally it gets to the customer. And that's that feedback loop that's got to be changed. And we need more like live intel sharing. I mean, I know we do have kind of a live mechanism, and we get some in return as well, which is useful. But it's really, really important. Like it has to be speed matters in this game.
Well, I
don't know if I've ever talked about it here, but that program at DoD, like what's happening on the back end is they're giving us their sensitive government indicators. We're including that in our scoring for just those customers. It's an AWS GovCloud. And so we're detecting and blocking threats on their indicators. We're also doing all of our other stuff, but then we're sharing the metadata, the summary of the metadata, like port protocol, source, destination, data volume. We're storing that all in real time in an ELK stack in an anonymous form where the DoD can actually watch that. So if they get an IOC from the intelligence community, they can search in ELK in real time and say, is this showing up in the DIB? So it's like, awesome. This is kind of one of those passions of mine from way back when I was with White House and DHS. And it's cool to see it actually working.
That is a good example of it working the right way. That's great to hear.
I second the thing around DC3. I got most of my training out of DC3 when I was with the government. They're great. They're a great organization, and genuinely want to help out and not be intrusive. I think the flip side of this too is thinking about it in terms of we talk about the government network as if it's, you want to talk about networks that don't really have a solid boundary, right? You can talk about the gig, you can talk about what DISA has under their purview and stuff like that, but you're forgetting about the hundreds of other federal networks that are operating, some on Jibbers. There was literally one CI guy, I think, at the Department of Agriculture, and that's all. That's why did they need intelligence? I don't know. Maybe they need to be able to coordinate and work with other teams on that. There are and that's just counting like the actual government owned assets, like owned by the federal government. You have a lot of weird assets that are hybrid owned, like, you know, fusion centers, like who owns and controls what thing. And then you have all of the other things that kind of fall under like that weird, you know, defense contractor type of area. Like who owns the classified network? Well, technically the government does, but like it's under the purview. And so you get those weird boundaries there that go out incredibly far. I think much further overseas than people necessarily think about. So like who owns those things? And it's really, you know, we talk about wanting to try and have this, you know, public-private partnership where we're sharing information. Well, I mean, I would personally be happy if just anything that touches something that's federal government, not even state, just federal government, had sharing of its own. Like they could understand and get their hands around that type of network because it's truly massive.
Yeah, very distributed, lots of agencies, overlapping authorities. It's a challenge for sure. There's no question.
Well, maybe
I'm not
Tick
quite sure where to share stuff effectively still. I came out of there. I spent 12 years at the agency. You know, it's crazy.
Well, maybe Tick 3.0 will solve it when Tick 2.0 or Tick 1.0 didn't.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
CMMC is going to come down next year. CMMC 2, and that's going to solve all our problems.
John's going to make us all drive into traffic.
Just make it CIS and call it a day.
Thank you.
At least they tell you what to do. I really like those frameworks. It's like, change this configuration to X. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on. I'm a big fan of the CIS stuff. Big fan.
So, I mean, we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I do want to be respectful. Allan was able to finally be able to join us, and thank you, Allan. So I know you've been traveling around.
I'm sorry?
I have one question for Allan. That is the most important question ever.
You got it.
Did you lose your sense of taste?
Oh, God, no.
Okay, then we're good.
No, I
would have more questions. That's it.
Well, so I have my next sommelier certification scheduled for June 7th. And when I tested positive, like I spent the rest of the day sniffing everything I could to make sure that
that's why I asked, because, you know, we got to put the important things first here.
I was very concerned.
That's like a death sentence. You get COVID, your gut, you can't taste or smell. It's
right.
brutal.
So all I'd have left is my cybersecurity career instead of my wine hobby. Oh no.
Priorities. But
Facts.
what are you seeing these days, Allan, that you want to talk about?
I am fascinated by the whole SpiceJet Airlines ransomware attack and the idea of that's been discussed on Twitter this morning of could that be that kind of extra extortion that we talk about, where if you have passengers on a plane or stuck in an airport trying to pressure airlines to pay in order to, you know, get everything back up and running. Now, we all here know that just because you pay the ransom doesn't mean bam, your ransomware attack magically goes away. But it is kind of a fascinating idea. Are we going to see more interest from ransomware actors in going after these kind of targets, given the kind of outcry and attention they're getting from this one, that could be immediately disruptive to you know, bystanders?
Yeah, I do think there's a silent attack growing. Silently growing interest on attacking our infrastructure. It doesn't have to just be electric and gas, but I mean, travel is a form of infrastructure, if you will, right?
There's been agriculture companies getting ransomware recently. I think two were hit pretty recently.
Yeah, but their hygiene is worse than healthcare companies.
They should have let me work on my John Deere tractor.
Exactly.
With the airline ransomware thing, there's a new Samuel L. Jackson movie, Worms on a Plane, you know?
Oh my God.
Don't give them ideas. They'll make it.
Why do we come out with the song?
Worms.
Yeah, I think
we
you know one. I
dad
think
jokes.
one that's nasty that luckily I think it's kind of hard technically to pull off is like holding buildings hostage. You know, because there's a lot of times a manual override for building automation systems. And so you can encrypt like the computer that controls them that's running your software. But if anyone gets to the point of being able to mess with the firmware but not destroy it and hold the building hostage, that it'd take a more technical, you know, kind of approach and a lot more R&D. But boy, I would hate that one because that would
Wasn't
work.
that Stuxnet? Didn't they just increase the speed of the centrifuge?
I guess. I mean, that's what I read. It sounded like it. I mean, the yeah, that's a typical industrial control style attack. And usually, like, especially in buildings, like, you have a huge age range of industrial control equipment in there, and it's really similar to SCADA. They run BACnet instead of maybe Modbus or TCP. Like, those protocols are unauthenticated, so if you get in, you can craft packets and change set points in fans and boilers and all that stuff. But the system that actually can talk to the firmware on your chillers and boilers and your water treatment, that's the area that gets a little janky and scary, because that is the wild west. I mean, that's one area, like, I think, I'm curious if you guys are seeing more attacks on physical security infrastructure that's integrated with Windows domain, kind of like the Sony attack had some of that going on. But we had a breach in one of our customers, and we're like, and this was a port, right? And we're like, damn, we got to hustle and knock this one out. So we did. And we were really impressed. It turned out to be the federal government doing an actual pen test on a port critical infrastructure. They did a freaking great job.
I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Got to give them credit for it. But people got to look at that a lot more. And I highly recommend separating your badge swipe off. All the vendors tell you to integrate that with Active Directory. So if you fire someone, you can delete their account and their badge swipe's gone. It's a terrible idea, because if you get ransomed, it smokes your entire physical security infrastructure, like, immediately.
But that requires VLANs and network segmentation, and that's just too hard, John.
I know. Just break the domain tie, and, like, we'll call that good enough.
I thought the cloud was going to solve all this for us.
That does make it not perfect, but a little better. It's a little hard.
Well, I mean, maybe not the cloud. I know. It's got to be the cloud plus crypto. That's right.
Yeah, there you
With
go.
an NFT.
Crypto, yeah, man. You got to put it on the blockchain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The blockchain solves everything.
Yeah.
That's fine about the cloud. Cloud services, we see customers who still roll all on-prem get smoked more than the others that are more kind of a full cloud model. But boy, the cloud is awesome until it's not, and it's a house of cards. When
Did you have anyone affected by Okta? If you can say.
I don't think so. Did we, X?
No, it's not super popular in our customer base. Yeah.
But yeah, that's always scary. You think about, like, cloud networking control. Like, geez, imagine if that stuff gets taken over. I mean, you can wreck house fast.
Oh yeah.
This is why all the network vendors need to, like, if they're kind of loading a binary and it goes into memory, they need to freaking cryptographically sign that stuff. It's really, really important.
And test the process too, right? Like,
yeah.
Because I've seen a lot that are cryptographically signed, but there could be some, where they get these OS firmwares from for all these devices. It's not the most legit sources. And they all or they get, like, the actual operating system on the IoT device. It's never, they don't usually build it from the ground up. It's usually licensed.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. Well, now that we're getting to the top of the hour, any closing remarks from everybody before we close this thing out? Shiva, go ahead.
Fun to see everybody.
I got nothing, so start with the guys who actually know what they're doing.
There
John,
we go.
one of the Johns, Xavier, Vince, Allan.
The Johns.
No, I would just say thanks for doing this. It was too long. I thought we were doing this every month. I was all ready. So I'm in.
Next month.
This is fun. I think it's really good to get people, like, unscripted, no sales bullshit.
Right.
I'm so tired of these thinly veiled sales pitches. Let's talk honest and real, be educational. It's better.
But make sure you give both Johns, Vince and Allan, your money and buy their products.
That's very important.
They can't say it, but I can.
And Shiva's got a link to his podcast there in his title bar, so definitely check out the Amplified and Intensified podcast, and doing some great stuff over there. And with that, we will wrap this one up. Everybody stick around for
what
the
about Vince, John, and Allan? Anything?
I'm sorry. My apologies.
Nope. Just gonna say thanks for the time today. It was awesome.
Yeah. Apologies for being late. Had a customer meeting that ran long, but
I thought you were doing a wine tasting, to be honest with you.
I wish. Sadly, I'm not allowed to leave the house, but I still have meetings to go to. So,
and you can still drink wine at your house too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me also onto this. We also have our own podcast too, called The Unfair Fight. for Blackpoint Cyber. So look out for that. Go check it out. It ranges all over. It's not even just cybersecurity sometimes. John's has high level athletes. It gets a little bit outside of just cybersecurity. So a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, the Recorded Future just launched their new their podcast with I forget the
Dina. Was a pretty good. That's a pretty good podcast. Highly recommended too.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It did take me a couple episodes.
I'll be checking that out.
It did take me a couple episodes to get adapted to her style.
You just got to listen faster, man. That's all.
Listen faster. That's the name of the game.
All right, let's get this thing closed out. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please like, subscribe. Please share this with somebody you think you'll find value with this thing. We want to be able to spread this message. Please subscribe to us as we try to expand this thing and be able to make this thing grow. Until then, thank you so much for joining, and we will talk to y'all next time. Take care.
There once was a kid whose passwords laid across all sites. They were the same, a criminal, then found their fame by taking that data to go. Soon may a criminal come to steal your pictures and data and run. One day when the crime is done, they'll steal your account and go.